Okay. I'm the co-host tonight. My name is Karen Lee. And I'm going to go ahead and welcome you to our Dallas Singles Toastmasters, Dallas Social Toastmasters meeting. And I've also shared my screen. You go to find our current agenda, you go to the Dallas Social Toastmasters website and click under current agenda. Oops. Under current agenda, not current schedule. And this is our current agenda for tonight. Also want to remind our speakers to be sure to pin the timer when you're speaking. And also, I will go ahead and turn the meeting over to our Toastmaster, Rob Giles.
Thank you very much, Madam Zoom Master. So our theme today for this meeting is the State Fair of Texas. And I want to touch on one thing before I delve into that, and that is a similarity. And I mentioned this in the Area 33 contest a few weeks ago. And that was that the State Fair of Texas has a lot of new things. It has a lot of things that you can discover, a lot of things that you can try for the first time, some things that you may not want to try, or they may look a little questionable, whether it's fried food, whether it's a ride that you're going to go on, whether it's going up to meet some of the animals a little bit closer. Trying these new things is good. It doesn't always turn out great, but it's somewhat in line with Toastmasters in that we're here, we try, we press, we stretch ourselves to try to expand our horizons. Sometimes it doesn't go as well as we want it to go. Sometimes it doesn't go as well as planned, but we need to try. And that's why we're here at Toastmasters. So that's my intro to tonight's meeting. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the State Fair of Texas and some of the fun facts that I found when I was looking through some items about the State Fair of Texas. But before I get into that, I do want to ask, just because I'm not on my laptop as of yet, can I have somebody take the timer roll, or at least for the prepared speeches? Is there somebody that can do that for me?
Hey, Rob, I can do that. I will go get my phone, which is charging, and I will be right back for that.
Okay, great.
Mark, if you have any trouble, I can do the same, but my phone is in the other room at the moment.
Be right back.
So let me go into some of the fun facts for the State Fair of Texas. And I don't know if any of you have attended so far this year. I know that there's some people that may not want to because of the mass crowds. I went last weekend and it was fantastic. It was packed. It was busy though. And you don't have to wear masks when you're outside, but when you are in buildings, they do ask that you wear masks. However, whenever I was inside, I would say probably 75% of the people still refrain from using masks. But overall, it was a great experience for me. And it was fun to get back to a normal State Fair of Texas, as opposed to last year where you just had to drive through. So some facts before we move on to our duty holders. I don't know if you know, but the State Fair of Texas, those coupons that you get to buy things, to go on rides and that type of thing, those don't expire. So if you have any left over and you don't want to part with them, a lot of times if you're exiting the park, you may want to pass those along to the people coming in, just give them a little bit of a bonus as they come in. But if you don't want to do that, save them. They're good for the next year or the year after, They're good forever. Doesn't matter whether the prices have gone up. I noticed this year that the price of each ticket went up from 50 cents to $1, which is a little bit steep, but at the same time, if you're able to save those tickets, it's good. You can use them all later on if you're not going to give them away on your way out. Another thing that is interesting is that the State Fair of Texas is the longest running fair in the USA. Also in 1942, the most famous fair food of all, the corny dog, made its debut at the Texas State Fair. The fair has been held at the same location, Fair Park, since its inception. One of the most famous musical acts that ever performed at the State Fair of Texas happened in 1956. Does anybody have a guess as to who that performer was?
Elvis Presley.
No? You got it. Nailed it. Awesome. Elvis Presley in 1956. That had
Uncle
to
Hunka
been-
Burnin', corny
Exact-
dog.
And we're not talking about big techs either. So just to let you know, the most attended days of the fair are the last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'm sure that's because people want to get in their last fix, or they haven't gone and they want to get in there. The only other times that it's more busy is during the Texas OU game, or if you're an OU fan, an OU Texas game. So during that time, generally about 200,000 people pass through the gates. On opening day in 1886, a reported 14,000 people attended the fair. So quite a difference between then and now. But that was a long time ago, wasn't it? 1886. All right, I'll get into a little bit more of the facts that I found. But right now I want to move into the duty holders for tonight and ask them to reveal what their duties are for the evening. And we're going to start off with our vote counter this time. And that is one of our new members, Adelita Esparza. Adelita, would you please tell us what you're going to be taking care of tonight as far as vote counter is concerned?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. As voter counter, I will accept votes through the private chat and count the votes after the audience votes for best speaker, best table topic speaker, best evaluator, and best of the big three. The big three are the Toastmaster, the table topics master, and the general evaluator. I will record which person wins in each category. I will not cast a vote for myself, except in the case of a tie, in which case I will cast a vote to break the tie. However, I will not announce that there was a tie vote. Again, place your votes by sending me a message in private chat only to me, Adelita. At the end of the meeting, I will announce the winners. You may also, and I encourage you that you do, send comments to each speaker, evaluator, and table topics participant by sending private chat messages to the person directly. Thank you. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Recording.
Sorry about that. My apologies, folks. Oh, I hope your hearing is okay. Of course, I can't hear you now. It's kind of like being in some places in the State Fair of Texas. It's so loud. But the next duty holder that I would like to go to have them announce their duties is going to be Tom Terici. Tom is our posture monitor for the evening. Tom, would you please tell us what you will be looking for this evening?
Thanks very much, Rob. As the posture monitor for this evening, I'll be looking for unusual or distracting posture, which is a little bit different on a Zoom call than in a face-to-face meeting. I'll be looking for things like grasping hair, touching face, rocking back and forth, to the extent that they appear to be unintended and distracting. I'll keep track of the posture issues, and I'll report the results at the end when called upon. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate it. Our next duty holder is doing double duty this evening, and that is our grammarian, as well as our counter, and that is Mr. John Vessels. John, will you please describe both of those duties that you'll be performing this evening for us?
Sure, I will, Rob. Thank you. Tonight, I'm doing two jobs, and that's the all counter and the grammarian. So the all counter is going to listen to everybody speaking tonight and listen for the use of crutch words like so, you know, or any long pauses that might be not intentional. And I will make note of those, and I will present at the end of the meeting when called upon by the general evaluator to let them know how everybody did this evening with ahs and ums. The second job is the grammarian, and the grammarian's job is twofold. One is to listen to everybody speaking tonight and make note of good uses of the English language, bad uses of the English language, or any kind of issues like that. And again, I will make a note of those things and present them at the end of the meeting during the general evaluation portion. Also, the grammarian's job is to introduce the word of the day. And the word of the day is, you can't see it. Okay. Is cavalier. And cavalier means having or showing, not having or showing any concern for the importance of serious matters. Now, cavalier will need to be used during the table topics portion of the meeting when you're viewing table topics, and use it whenever else you can fit it into the whole night. And as we use the word of the day, we can try to continue to use it throughout our week and make it part of our permanent vocabulary. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, John. Greatly appreciate it. And it looks like I'm in, so I can take over the timer role. I appreciate the people that were offering to back up and taking care of that as a backup. I greatly appreciate that. I don't want to get into this too much, but as timer, it's kind of interesting because you may think, those who have been around and have seen me speak and watched me speak, you may think that I might be a little cavalier regarding time as far as my speeches are concerned, but I'm not. I tell you, I'm not. I try. I really do. And as timer, I'm here to help you as far as your timing is concerned, because we need to learn to be able to express ourselves in a specific or finite amount of time. We can't just speak indefinitely, at least not for the most part, although I know that there was somebody who spoke for over 92 hours straight, and I think that's the world record. But tonight, we're going to try to keep it into our specific time frames that we have. For our prepared speeches, we are going to have 5 to 7 minutes for both of them. When our speakers reach 5 minutes, they're going to get the green background for me. So please, speakers, make sure that I'm on your screen and that you're watching me. When you reach 5 minutes, you're going to get the yellow background. When you reach 7 minutes, or did I say 5 minutes? So it's 5 minutes for the green, 6 minutes for the yellow. For our table topic contestants, it's 1 to 2 minutes. You must reach 1 minute to qualify. And at 1 minute, you will see the green background. At 1 minute and 30 seconds, you'll get the yellow background. And then at 2 minutes, you get the red background, in which case you have 30 seconds to wrap up in order to qualify. For our evaluators, it's 2 to 3 minutes. So you'll start, and then once you reach 2 minutes, you'll get the green background. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you will get the yellow background. And at 3 minutes, you will get the red background, in which case you have, again, 30 seconds to wrap up in order to qualify to be the best evaluator. I will give reports when called upon throughout the meeting. And that's it. Try to stay in time. Keep me pinned if you're a speaker, whether it's going to be prepared speakers, topic speakers, or evaluators. So look for me and look for my backgrounds. At this point, I do want to go into just a couple more facts about the State Fair of Texas before we get into our prepared speeches. Before he was a cowboy at the State Fair of Texas, he was found in a small town in Texas, and he was not a cowboy. What was he? Does anybody know? No? Big Tex was a giant Santa Claus. The original Big Tex was a giant Santa Claus before he became Big Tex. So that's just an interesting fact there. In 1924, at the State Fair of Texas, Harry Houdini performed. He wriggled free from a straitjacket while hanging upside down. And in 1970, just before opening day, Big Tex shirt was stolen. The Lee Company scrambled to make another size 90 shirt, size 90, which was completed just a few hours before opening day. That was back in 1970. So somebody had a fun time. I don't know, I don't know how they got it out of there, but apparently they did. At this point, I would like to move into the prepared speeches for tonight. And our first prepared speaker is Mr. Dagan Newland. His speech evaluator for the evening is Mr. Mark Schroeder. Mark, would you please reveal what Dagan's goals and objectives are for his speech this evening?
Thank you, Rob. I'd be happy to. And I'm sorry for breaking you up on that one. That was perfectly timed. I didn't get a spit take, but I got pretty close. All right, so tonight Dagan is doing a speech, which we all know that he has a social media website because he's published or publicized it here. And he is going to do a speech which has as a goal building a social media presence. Well, let me go through what some of his goals are tonight. And I'm going to move it over so that I can actually face the camera closer. During the process, he has actually taken the time to build either new or enhancements to his existing media presence online. And he has generated some posts to the platform of his choosing, may have been either for personal or professional purpose. And tonight he's going to deliver a well-organized speech about his experience with regard to that website and the posts and how that is going. He can choose to speak about the experience as a whole, or he can focus on just a few aspects of the experience of social media and building a presence there. He is, however, not supposed to talk about the content of, quote, building a social media presence as a project. So that is his goal tonight. I believe his time is the typical 5 to 7.
Thank you very much, Mark. That is true, 5 to 7 minutes. Please help me to welcome our first prepared speaker for the evening, Mr. Dagan Newland with a social media presence. A social media presence, Dagan Newland.
And Dagan, please make sure that you have Rob visible as the timer. You are on mute.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. No.
Now we can.
Yes, can now.
All right. So I know Mark said it's not big content speech about building a social media presence, but I can actually sum it up. My experience is with, building my social media presence in probably a couple of minutes. I mean, well, actually a couple of sentences. So I'm actually going to have a little bit part of that because I believe that is part of the experience that y'all need to know about is part of the experience is building that social media platform. So I am going to speak on that a little bit as well. But overall, building a social media presence has been kind of a whirlwind ride, so to speak. But first, actually, what I'd like to ask, does anybody have a social media presence like Facebook or Instagram? I'm pretty sure pretty much everybody probably has at least something like that. So, but when somebody wants to build an actual, build a presence on there, it takes a lot of time and commitment. For example, first of all, I would like to go into why I started my social media presence, and that is because I was trying to get into, the beard content. I looked at, started looking at content about beard stuff and beard care, and that's been several years ago. And when I saw the creators on there talking about when they're reviewing products, not all of them, but there's a couple of them that were saying like, every review they did was like, this is the best thing ever. Next review, this is the best thing ever. Next review, this is the best thing ever. So I know, through my own experiences, that cannot be true. You can't be saying this is the best thing ever. So I, took it by myself and said, well, I can do this, and I can put my thoughts into what the products, and how they feel in my beard and how they work in my beard. Because actually, everybody's hair is different. Everybody's head hair is a little different. Everybody's, guys with the beards, everybody's beard hair is different. So I wanted to be able to give my thoughts on how products work in my beard. So to do that, I started a YouTube channel called BGG Beard Reviews, and I also started a Instagram account named the same thing. So of course, I wanted to to build that presence. First, you have to get the content out there, and like I said, you just have to hit record. Like a lot of people say, just hit record, just do it. So you first actually put your content out there, then you start getting, building that media with that content, and then you have to start, reaching out to people on, for example, like IG. You start following like-minded people, so to speak. So in my case, it's the beard content. So I start looking on IG and finding other people with beards. At first, like hashtag beards. I use hashtags to start finding things that's beard related, and I start following these people, and they start following me back. And at one point, of course, obviously I started with 0 followers on IG, and now I'm up to like over 1,600 followers on IG by doing that. And also, when you posting content, you have to be consistent. So when you have to be consistent, that's another thing that's time consuming as well. So you got to follow a schedule. So I make sure I post like every few days, at least I try to on IG, and not all times related, because I have noticed through building my presence on Instagram is that when I post just beard content, I don't get as much likes and comments like that. Even though the other people are beard and that's what they like, that's what we're relating to. They also like to see the personal side as well. So when I, post things about me, like I posted a thing about my haircut. I got a new haircut yesterday, so I posted that, and I got a whole slew of likes and some comments. So, of course, when it comes to my YouTube channel, you got to post consistently there, because YouTube is different too. It has an algorithm. Of course, they all go by algorithms, whether it's TikTok, IG, YouTube, Clapper, all social medias have some kind of algorithm they follow. And so to do that on YouTube, I had to make sure I was posting content on YouTube on a consistent basis, and I try to do it at the same time, well, pretty much the same time, the same days every week. I always post a video on Tuesday, and I post a video on Saturday, and sometimes I may have an extra video, and I'll probably throw it in like on a Thursday or Wednesday or Friday. But overall, my experience with that has been really a whirlwind. It's been really hectic. It takes a lot of my time out of my life, because also building that followership and subscribers on YouTube, I'm constantly in other people's live streams, the other beard related content in their live streams, trying to chat people up, you know, and let them know I'm out here. And, you know, that does help because, matter of fact, just this past Monday, I was on a live stream. I made some comments, and the host of the live stream actually posted my comment up there. And the next thing I know, I get a subscriber. So, you know, that kind of helps too. So, but overall, even John could probably contest to this. Before I even started my YouTube channel, you know, we would actually play Words with Friends up quite a bit, you know. And after I got more deeper into my YouTube channel and things like that, I've been playing him less and less. So as he can probably attest, it's really time consuming. But overall, I can suggest if you want to have a social media presence, whether it's like me wanting to put my content out about beard related stuff, you know, beard product reviews, tips and tricks, you know, whatever it may be for you. You could be, you know, you want to show how to knit or whatever you like to do, and you want to put that out there for somebody else to see. Just remember that it will be time consuming, and don't be cavalier about it. You got to put your due diligence in, and because if you do not, if you just post here and there, like one day here and 2 weeks later another day here, you will not get that growth you need, and you won't get your information out there. And so, like I like to say, just hit record and be consistent, and that's what I can say about that. And overall, it's very hectic. It takes a lot of time, and yeah, so that's it. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Dagan. Actually, before we get to our next speaker, if you have any comments for Dagan in his speech, feel free to send a message to him in regard to that, and I'll take it. Go ahead.
I know some other people that came in late, but before I just want to let everybody know I did not prepare for a speech, so because I wanted to get better at a table topic style speech. So that's my thought process, because I just want, me personally, I just want to get better at that. And so if anybody has comments, I would really appreciate it based on that.
Excellent. Thanks, Dagan. So with that time elapsing, we will move on to our second prepared speech, which is Justin Faust. And Justin's evaluator for the evening is Mr. Lee King, distinguished Toastmaster Lee King. Lee, would you please present Justin's objectives and goals for his speech this evening?
Yes. Justin will be working on the project Connect with Your Audience. The main purpose of his project is for the member to practice the skill needed to connect with an unfamiliar audience. So a special note, the member completing this project is practicing the skill needed to connect with an unfamiliar audience. To do this, the member presents a topic that is new or unfamiliar to the club members. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Lee. Appreciate that. At this point, please help me to welcome Justin Faust with Mastery. Mastery, Justin Faust.
Thank you, Rob. When you think of genius, wait, the wrong mute. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at you, Rob. Can I start over? Or, okay. All right. Sorry about that. When you think of genius, you think of super intelligence. You think of a scientist or a mathematician. But if you look at the origin of the word genius, genius was a spirit that watched over every human being when they were born to show them their innate ability. In the book Mastery, written by Robert Greene, he talks about this. Human beings are all born unique. We are all born with the unique DNA and brain structure. This uniqueness is manifested in what he calls innate abilities, primal inclinations. We are all drawn to certain subjects, certain topics, certain activities. When we're younger, we know them. We can pick them out easier. To become a true genius, you must learn your vocation, your calling in life. You must also learn to go through an apprenticeship, a time of learning about your vocation. The final step in becoming a true genius is being able to connect your knowledge and being creative in your new field, in your field. I will go through two summaries, two masters, and show you how they followed mastery to become a genius in their field. The first person is Charles Darwin. We all know Charles Darwin, a famous scientist. But what you may not know, he was a terrible student. He made terrible grades in school. All he really cared about was collecting bugs and insects in England. His father tried to make him into a doctor, but he was frightened of blood and guts and could not go through with it. Then he decided to make him a church priest and put him through seminary school at Cambridge. He barely passed, but he did excel in one subject, botany. His professor, after he graduated, told Charles Darwin of a voyage that would travel to South America, and they needed someone that could collect specimens and plants. He declined at first based on his father's wishes, but something was calling him to go on this voyage, something yearning deeply inside of him, saying he wanted to go through with this journey. So he did. He traveled to South America. He traveled to Peru, the Andes Mountains, Brazil, the Galapagos Islands. Over a 5-year period, collecting specimens and learning about different animals and plants. On his voyage, he came up with the greatest scientific discovery of all time, the theory of evolution and natural selection. The next master is John Coltrane. Anyone who knew John Coltrane before the age of 16 knew him as just an average musician, nothing special. But he came in contact with another master named Charlie Parker, a saxophone player, alto sax player. And he saw him playing in a club at the age of 16 and was instantly drawn towards music. The way Charlie Parker was playing his saxophone, as if he was communicating through his instrument, expressing his emotions through his instrument. And John Coltrane was instantly inspired to become a saxophone player and express himself through the saxophone. But what he did, he went on the most incredible apprenticeship for a musician of all time. He would spend 10 years learning how to play. He would practice 8 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours a day. He would play the saxophone until the reeds start to bleed and his lips became red. That's how much passion he had for his instrument. He would go on to play in multiple different bands, learning various different styles. of jazz music, Latin, Negro spirituals, different forms of music, until 10 years later, he was able to come with the greatest, to create the greatest jazz musician album of all time, A Love Supreme. He was able to collect and gain knowledge from all his years of experiences and playing different forms and styles. And critics at the time said he wasn't even playing music, but he was playing, it sounded like he was playing sheets of music in his album. He was truly learning how to express himself through his collective knowledge of years of playing in different various bands. We all can use this as a form of a formula to become our own genius in our own field, our own master. We can all think about and find our primal inclinations. From these primal inclinations, we can go find our vocation. From our vocation, we must go through an apprenticeship phase. Then finally, we can create something fantastic, something magical with creativity and become a true master. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justin. Thanks to both of our speakers. If you would like to give a comment or present a comment, whether there's positive feedback, some constructive feedback for Justin, please go ahead and send him a chat. At this point, I will call for a timer's report from Mr. Timer, and that would be myself. Both speakers qualified on time. Dagan qualified at 7 minutes and 13 seconds, Justin at 7 minutes and 16 seconds. So at this point, I would ask that we have for the best prepared speaker, please private to Adelita. Guests are welcome to vote as well. And while we're doing that, I will go ahead and share a couple more facts regarding the State Fair of Texas. In 1897, so before the turn of the century, or the turn of the 20th century, or I guess into the 20th century, the featured exhibit was an 80,000 pound whale preserved in embalming fluid. So an embalmed whale, 80,000 pounds. Wow. I did not know that. And that's pretty heavy. That's all I have to say about that. Did I say this before? Don't think so. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave with one more before we move into our table topic session. And this was also interesting to me. This was that Debbie Reynolds. I don't know if any of you remember Debbie Reynolds. Some of you may remember, some may not. But Debbie Reynolds performed on stage in 1977 at the State Fair of Texas. However, during this time also, somebody else you may know, Carrie Fisher, her daughter, who had just starred in the biggest movie of the summer, Star Wars, toured the fairgrounds unrecognized, probably because she wasn't wearing her signature Princess Leia buns. So that's interesting that you could think back to that time and you have these people performing and other people that became very, very famous, just kind of walking around, you know, prior to people wanting to go and mob them. At some point in their life, that entirely changed. So the State Fair of Texas, I'll say this. I went last weekend. I loved it. It was fantastic. I don't know what your favorite food is. I know that every time that I go, I always have to get a fried cheesecake. And that's my go-to when I go. However, it's hard for me to walk by the fried turkey legs without picking one up. You see people eating them, and I'm like, I need to have some of that. I don't know if anybody else has some favorite foods, but maybe you want to throw those in the chat if you do. At this point, let's move into the next portion of our meeting, which is our table topics. Tonight's topic master for the evening is Mr. Mark Sims. Please help me to welcome Mark.
Thank you, Rob. In table topics, we give you the to speak off the cuff, to respond to a question you may not be anticipating. And this can help you develop a very useful skill, because at work you may be called upon to give an opinion on something, to give a response to a question in a meeting without having any advance notice. Or you may be in a position sometime to have an unexpected job interview or sales pitch opportunity. So this is a skill that you can definitely enhance in your time at Toastmasters. We will eventually vote on the best table topics participant, and there are 2 requirements in order to be able to win the competition. One is to speak for a minimum of 1 minute, and then no more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And that includes a 30-second grace period. So at least 1 minute, no more than 2 minutes, 30 seconds. And you will see Rob displaying the signals for when you've met the minimum amount of time, when you're about halfway through, and when you are at the end of your time. And then you also need to use the word of the day. The word of the day tonight is cavalier, meaning maybe to take something too lightly or nonchalantly, as in Mark's boss got mad at him because he was too cavalier about his work duties. So you may get a prompt from John on the word of the day, cavalier. And there are 3 guests tonight, and guests, once you've seen a couple of examples of the table topics responses, you may want to participate. If you do, get my attention. Either a private chat me, Mark Sims, or since all of your cameras are on, just wave and get my attention, and we will try and get you involved. This first question maybe is a natural question. It's, are you going to the Texas State Fair this year? And I'm directing that to Adelita Esparza.
Thank you, topic master. As for the Texas State Fair this year, I am not sure if I'll be able to make it this year. I really want to go because I am really looking forward to a funnel cake beer that they offer right across the big Ferris wheel. They have a little small beer garden there, and for some reason, every time I've gone there, it's always there. So that's something that I would like to look forward to if I decide to go this year. Back to you.
Thank you, Adelita. And for this next question, there's a lot of attractions at the fair. Maybe it's seeing some great performances, the cars, the food, or maybe the football game, the different things to attract different people. I would like to ask Tom Turecki, what is your favorite part of the state fair?
Thank you, Mark. My favorite part of the state fair, and I have to say, I have to preface this by saying it has less appeal to me now than perhaps when I was younger and maybe more cavalier about how I spent money or what things I ingested. But the elements of the fair that I find most appealing were the things dealing with the animals, not going and interacting with them, but the bird show where they had the exotic birds up on the stage and they would call the bird from far, I think it was even the top of the Ferris wheel, and it was the owl or the hawk would swoop down over the over the crowd's head. I always found that fabulously entertaining. Also, the pig races. Where else can you go and see a handful of pigs running around a track in pursuit of an Oreo? I love that they get an Oreo, that's the prize for the winner as well. So I would have to say at the dog show, how can I forget that? Being a dog person, a dog lover, I love the dog show as well. I haven't been in a few years. I don't know if they still do all of those events or even any of them, but those were, when we were going to the fair, those were my favorite elements of going to the fair by far. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Tom. And going to the fair, depending on the day you go, depending on the people you're with, might be this so-so. It might be a really great, memorable experience. This next question, since we've had a volunteer, I'd like to ask Madeline, what's the most memorable time you've ever had at the state fair?
Oh man, I've got an answer for this. So I've got a small backstory as well. I went to the University of Oklahoma. So this upcoming Saturday football game, pretty big deal. Gone to about at least 4 of the OU Texas State Fair games. Variety of different groups of people, great times. Saw, I think it was like the world's tiniest horse. It was very small. But anyway, so I think my most memorable experience would be in college when there was a large group of us and we thought it would be really entertaining to drink a lot of alcohol when it was like 95 degrees and then ride all the rides together. And so it's not, it wasn't the best experience, but it was the most memorable experiences, and I will probably never do that again. So that being said, I really enjoy the state fair when drinking is in moderation and when there's enough room, because I do also specifically remember one time there were so many people on OU Texas that I was literally just, we couldn't walk. I was just standing there and we just had to wait until there was enough room for us to even move. So it's quite an event. I got invited this year and I declined because I just am not up for it this year, but perhaps I'll make a comeback next year. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Madeline. Appreciate it. And in the last, oh goodness, almost 50 years, I've been to the state fair 2 whole times, once with my parents and some other friends of the family, and then with a church group about 20 years ago. Both occasions were on the Texas OU Day, and it was jammed beyond belief. I think both of those were unintentional to do that, but it's what we ended up doing, and boy, it was crowded.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can imagine, and so with the rides, with the alcohol, with the crowds, then I can see why that is a memorable day. And that leads into this next question. Different people have different tolerances for crowds. Some people may be okay with it. I'm not so much. And maybe you feed off the enthusiasm of the crowd, or maybe you just don't like all these strangers up against you. And I'd like to ask, do you like being in big crowd situations? And I'd like to ask that to John Bessels.
Thank you, Mark. I have mixed emotions about crowds. I used to work in first aid as a paramedic in the state fair, and I was in a lot of crowds, and when I'm working, you just deal with it. On a personal note, when I go places and I get too big a crowd, I prefer not to be there, and I'll go off someplace else, because I've been in bars and clubs and stuff that have gotten so packed that you couldn't even hardly move, and that then makes me lose any interest in being there, because I don't want to not be able to move. I just all of a sudden start feeling trapped and get a little claustrophobic, and I got to get me a little bit of room around me. I got to get my bubble open. But I'm not cavalier about it. I can get into a crowd if I need to be in a crowd, but I just don't prefer it in social situations or in trying to have a good time being packed in like sardines in some environment. So I do my best to stay out of heavy crowds. If I'm working, I have no choice, but that's the way I feel about it. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, John. And for this final question, one part of the fair is some rides, and this may be great. You may enjoy the thrill of a dangerous ride. You may say, no way, no how. I would like to ask Karen Lee, do you enjoy dangerous or thrilling rides?
Mr. Table Topics Master, I am not cavalier about it. I do not enjoy dangerous rides. I've been on some of the different roller coasters at Six Flags, and I've gotten off of those roller coasters and I couldn't even walk in a straight line. And my stomach is all fluttered. I do not like dangerous rides. I've been on rides that have loop-de-loops that go like this and loop-de-loops that go like that. And I do not enjoy those kinds of rides at all. I do like the merry-go-rounds. I enjoy those because they're nice and slow. But when things spin around and around, I get dizzy, and I do not enjoy those kinds of rides. But I do not enjoy those dangerous kinds of rides at all. Mr. Table Topics Master, back to you.
Thank you, Karen. And absolutely, I understand. I enjoyed them a little more when I was younger. At this time, I would like to ask our timer, Rob Giles, to please give a timer's report on the table topic contestants.
Thank you, Mr. Topic Master. We had the following: Adelita, 34 seconds, so not qualifying. Tom, 1:25, qualified. Madeline, 1:33, qualified. John, 1:18, qualified. And Karen, 1 minute and 9 seconds, qualified.
Thank you, Rob. And I'd like to ask our grammarian, John Vessels, please give a word of the day usage report.
Thank you, Mark. The word of the day was used by Tom, myself, and Karen. The other two did not.
Okay. In that case, please send a vote by private chat to Adelita. And the three contestants that both met the time requirement and used the word of the day are Tom Turecki, who spoke on his favorite part of the state fair, John Vessels, who discussed whether he liked crowds, and Karen Lee, who discussed her, in this case, dislike of wild rides. So please send your vote. I'm about to do likewise. And while we are voting, I will turn it over to our general evaluator tonight, Karen Lee.
Thank you very much, Mark. And during this portion of the meeting, we get a chance to listen to the evaluators as they evaluate each speech that's been given tonight. And evaluating Dagan Newland's speech is Mark Schroeder.
Thank you, Karen. What, too soon? This evening, I'm going to be evaluating Dagan's speech. Let me start just briefly. I'm going to do approximately a 3-2-1, but let me start just with a comment about the intro. The intro seemed a little unfocused, could have been a little crisper. And it could have been because I'll have to have you think about it, whether I said something as part of your criteria that you needed to redirect, because it seemed like you were trying to do that. So maybe that was part of what was going on there. But I really like the fact that it very quickly focused on your motivation for why you were into social media in the first place. That you were seeing too many things being effectively a whitewash, where everything was perfect, everything was great. There was no reason to not use these things. And you wanted to give your personal experience because you thought that you had something to add. So I really like that. I thought you had very good points as to how to build followers. The fact that you started to use hashtags and you followed other hashtags and you matched other hashtags and you would follow each other back and forth in order to build up a bigger following amongst all of you. The fact that you post on a schedule and you think that posting on a particular schedule is very important. If you actually look online, you can find that there are recommended times for each social media, different time to post on Instagram versus Twitter versus Facebook to get the most response for it. So I think, first of all, having a time is important. And the fact that people expect it at a certain time is probably even more important. I thought it was also interesting that you added the personal stuff being posted, personal information gets you a bigger following, which has nothing to do with what you're really there for, but it does generate that additional interest. So I thought all of those were very good points. Second, or actually third, I guess, of the pluses, I like the way you talked about the time commitment and the fact that it really does take an awful lot of time to do this. If you're going to do it well, it is a heavy time commitment, and that you were finding that you were having less time for words with friends as a particular example of one of the things that had gone by the wayside as a result of this. A couple of things to work on. The organization of the speech could have been crisper. It seemed like you at least knew that you were going to be talking on social media. I didn't get a good sense of a clear beginning, middle, and end. I got a good middle with a lot of good points in it, but I'm not sure I got as much of a great beginning and a middle. Very minor point, the word I heard, you were talking about creators. Well, it's actually creators, and I did not hear the E as clearly as I would have liked to on that first one. My first thought was creators. What is it? Creators. Oh, creators. Okay, that's it. And finally, the third thing, you hit it just right with hit record. If I could read my writing, hit record, be consistent. Hit record, be consistent. You emphasized that a couple of times and you ended with it. And I thought that was an excellent one. But the negative is you didn't finish there. But I'm going to go to the pluses. The pluses were I thought you had excellent points. You did have that hit record, be consistent, even though you continued with, and that's about it. So should have stopped. Should have stopped when you were ahead. And I would love to have you work on some of my social media, at least for DSTM, not my Instagram. Nobody needs to work on that unholy mess for those of you who are part of that. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mark. Our second evaluator is Lee King, evaluating Justin Faust's speech mastery. Please help me welcome Lee King.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Justin. It was an honor to have the opportunity to evaluate your speech for this evening. Wanted to leave you with a few things I thought you did well, give you some suggestions for improvement, and then finally, at least one thing that I thought you did really well and outstanding in your speech. First and foremost, your speech was organized. It was well prepared. You gave a point. You supported your points with stories. You made another point, and then you wrapped it all up. So it was a very easy speech to follow. Also think that it was a good speech for everyone to hear and to just think about how the training process goes and how you become better at whatever you want to do. If that's your job or if there's a hobby or anything like that, definitely there's always an apprenticeship. A couple of things that you might want to consider. You were doing really well with your introduction, and then you realized that you were not on mute, and you thought you might have been on mute. And you pointed that out. I would encourage you not to point that out in the future, because you went from having a very well prepared beginning to one that could definitely be made a little sharper. So I would just encourage you to go ahead and continue. We seem to do pretty good if someone is on mute to let them know, and then backtrack. The other thing that I would suggest is you're coming real close to going over on your time. Perhaps only use one story, the story of Charles Darwin or the musician. Both stories you told very well. I think that you could be a little more, go in a little more detail or be a little more descriptive in your terms and with either one of the two stories, and things would have been a little bit sharper with just one story rather than two, especially given the time frame. But overall, the one thing that I thought you did very well in this speech, you definitely did a good job of making a point, telling a story, making a point, telling a story, and navigating us through your message that you wanted to share. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you. And right now I'm going to go ahead and give my report for the meeting. We did start a little bit. I've got to have a timer's report. Please, Mr. Timer, please tell us about our evaluators. How do they do on time?
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Both of our evaluators qualified on time. Lee King qualified with 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Mark Schroeder left nothing to spare at 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay. We do need to have a vote for the best evaluator. If you could please vote for best evaluator and send your votes to Adelita. And I'll go ahead and give my report. We did start just a little bit late. And I also know that our Toastmaster was doing so many different roles that he was very busy there, timer and Toastmaster. All of our duties were explained. Everyone explained their duty very well. And our table topics master did explain the purpose of table topics and the fact that the timing and the fact that all of us needed to use the word of the day, cavalier. I also noted when the evaluators were giving their evaluations that they both gave suggestions for improvement and also what the speaker did very well. And also now I'll ask for each of the duty holders to give their report. John, will you go ahead and give us your report as grammarian and accountant?
Yes, thank you, Karen. So let's start with accounting. With Dagan, you know what your big thing is you knows. There are about 10 of them, a couple of uhs and about 10 so's also. Madeline, you had a few ums during your table topic speech. Other than that, everybody else did pretty good with ums and uhs and things like that. So all that was being okay. Now, as a grammarian, had a lot of interesting words tonight. Dagan said algorithm, talked about followership. Justin, genius. I didn't know that definition of genius about it being somebody to watch over all of us and curry us to do our best things in life. I've never heard that before, so that was interesting. You talked about seminary, botany, Voyager. An interesting word combination that you talked about was primal invocation. And I've never heard those combined, but that's a really great little connection that we have. Mark Sims, you had a perfect, I know I just said a perfect alternate for cavalier and being nonchalantly. I thought that was a really good word. Tom, I'd forgotten all about pig races, but I still think it's a good thing. Rob, one thing I did hear that I shouldn't have heard was you got confused and said, did I say that before when you were looking at your screen and talking about your State Fair of Texas things? And yeah, I shouldn't have heard that. That should have stayed in your head. Anyway, but all in all, some interesting words tonight. Everybody did a good job on grammar. Nothing really awful to talk about. Back to you, Miss General Evaluator.
Also, Tom, will you go ahead and give us your report?
Sure, thanks very much. So overall, everyone did a very good job with posture, gestures, things like that. I was watching closely. I have to say, I never saw anything over the course of anyone's speeches that I found negative, that was distracting. Adelita, Madeline, John, very good job. Nothing particularly distracting in there. I did want to call out a few things across all of the speeches that I saw that I thought were particularly noteworthy that I happened to notice and maybe might even want to make a note of and try them again sometime when I'm speaking. Rob, I thought when you were talking about the state fair and Carrie Fisher being there, I think for emphasis, you said, "Can you imagine?" And you had your arms up like that. And I thought that was a very, very good way to really emphasize and drive home the point. And also, that's not the sort of gesture that you can do very often, otherwise it gets really old. So using it once, reserving that and using it for emphasis, I thought was very effective. Dagan, during your prepared speech, I thought you had very good use of hand gesturing. It's kind of difficult on a Zoom call, but yours to really strike the balance especially when the camera is kind of just above the level where your hands are normally seen. But I thought you did a good job of gesturing, but keeping it looking somewhat natural. It was neither overdone nor underdone. Justin, during your prepared speech, most of your hand gestures were just below the screen. They were right at the level where I could kind of tell you were gesturing, you were moving your hands, but it was just below the level of the screen. So I don't know if that was intentional or if you want to step back from the camera further so that your hands are more visible. But I think it would be I think your hand gesturing would be very effective person in face to face. You had a particularly good gesture crossing your arm when you were talking about Darwin being a doctor. And similarly, I thought also you had a really good, really effective use of a hand gesture when you were talking about John Coltrane playing till his lips bled or playing till he bled. I thought those were particularly effective. Mark Sims, you had particularly good body language, and a thing that I noticed with you was that in the Zoom call, really only your face is visible, and yet, and so since that's the only thing that's visible, you're able to produce gestures for emphasis by still being much more subtle. I think early on when you were speaking, I think for emphasis, you gave a slight nod of your head to the side just to emphasize a point, and you might have raised your eyebrow. And the fact that all that we could see on your screen was your head, I thought that was very effective. You didn't need much, but it was very effective for making the point. And I noticed Lee King, similarly, you did a very, very similar thing, and you have a very similar phenomena in that the camera zoomed in very closely, and it was very effective a number of times when you just did a very subtle nod of your head or use your head instead of a hand to make a point of emphasis. I think I'm probably, when I'm imitating it. I'm overdoing it a bit, and it's probably not as effective. But if you watch the recording, you'll get a sense of what I'm referring to. Karen, I thought you did a good job. One thing that I noticed in particular is you had a particularly effective hand gesture when you were handing it back over to Mark when you had finished speaking in the table topics. And then Mark Schroeder, I also noticed during your evaluation that you had very, kind of like I had said about Dagan and Justin, you had very effective and well-balanced use of hand gestures, neither overdone to the point where it would be distracting nor underdone. That's all that I had. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you, Tom. At this point in time, I'll ask for vote of the big three. We have Toastmaster, which is Rob Giles. Then Mark Sims is our table topics master, and myself as general evaluator. So if you'll go ahead and vote for the big three, send your votes to Adelita in the chat. Thank you. And then to hold our business meeting, our president, Lee King.
Good evening, everybody. We do have 3 guests. I will start right away with having our guests introduce themselves. So guests, please do share how you found us and what you thought about our meeting. We'll start with April. April.
Hello, my name is April. I found you guys meeting by listening to someone on YouTube, and they said something about Toastmaster, which I never heard of it before. So I searched to see, was it anything in my area, and I stumbled upon this one. So so far I'm liking it and I'm enjoying it. So
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
you're welcome.
Ruth.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ruth. I just moved to Dallas recently. I used to live in Austin, Texas. So I graduated from University of Texas at Austin. So we had a Toastmasters group there. I joined them like 3 or 4 times, and I really like it. And I was looking forward to join another Toastmaster. So I checked my schedule and I searched on toastmasters.org, and I found you, and I'm enjoying it. I really like it.
Thank you. And our final guest for this evening is Madeline. Madeline, will you please share your thoughts?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name's Madeline, and so I found Toastmasters because I've known for a while that whenever I need to explain myself or do really any type of presentation or speech, I totally freeze up, cannot explain anything, something I'm totally knowledgeable in, I just can't even say it. And so I joined, my current position is at CBRE, and my client is McKesson, and I'm on their sustainability team. And so we are currently setting SBTI targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and they're really interested in all these new sustainability initiatives. But I have a lot of higher ups that I need to convince to spend a lot of money that might not have as nice of a payback as they would like. And so basically I need to learn how to express myself and show my competency and knowledge to convince them to do more sustainability endeavors. So that's that, and just also learning how to speak better is why I'm here.
What did you think of our meeting?
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. This seems really helpful and beneficial.
Thank you. All right, well, thanks to all of our guests for coming this evening. Please know that you can visit or join anytime that you like. Yeah, Dagan is always more than happy to take new membership payments and go from there. So, but seriously, in all seriousness, we do hope that you enjoyed your time here tonight and that you back and at least visit us a few more times. Really, the only announcement that I have at this point is just that on the 21st, we have a division contest. We do have someone, Mark Sims, who will be competing in that contest. Just keep an eye out on the emails for the seat over the next few weeks. Rob will send a link to the division contest. And so in 2 weeks on the 21st, we will not have a regular meeting. We will all join at the division level contest. That is really the only announcement that I have at this time. We will now go ahead and get vote counters report, please, and tell us who won.
Actually, one other quick announcement, sort of,
Oh, yes,
if you don't mind.
sure.
So we've hit October. And October, of course, is Halloween. And we've been wondering what we're going to do, if anything. There's a possibility some of the haunted houses are actually open. We might consider trying to put together a haunted house trip. We've done that several years in the past. Last year, we didn't do it. Some of the haunted houses were closed. Some of them were open outdoor only. And it just varied. And of course, it was COVID. And I don't know how many people are going to feel comfortable. Reindeer Manor, a lot of it is still outdoors, but clearly the houses themselves are open, from what I can tell. If you look at the attractions, the 4 houses that they have, they're all there and they're all open. The bunker is new. I don't know if they had that last year. They've changed it up again. But the other 3 are their staples. And the other one that we've been to is, of course, Cutting Edge. Cutting Edge, actually, I don't get it. I don't understand how it manages to get rated the best in the nation, but it does consistently, and they keep pushing that as a rating. It is certainly one of the longest. It's over in Fort Worth. It is in an old slaughterhouse, and it's scary enough getting into the neighborhood, but it's also all indoors in about an hour. So we'll have to talk it over with people, see what people are interested in doing and feel comfortable with. Last year we did an online one where I pulled videos, and we did shares of videos of haunted houses throughout the nation that we could otherwise never go into. And I tried to pick ones that looked like you were on the path going through it and getting scared, basically getting scared by the actors as they were coming out at you. So I'll send out some emails, see what people are up to and comfortable with this year. It's really difficult to know how many people will be interested with COVID still around, but maybe there's enough interest. Maybe people are feeling comfortable enough, depending upon whether it's an indoor or outdoor one, that we can do something, and we'll try to put something together. If we do, it'll be a Friday or Saturday night. Those tend to be the nights that they're open. So be thinking about it. Watch your email. If you're a guest and are interested, contact me as well. We'd more than be happy to have you as a guest. We've got to have somebody to trip on the way out so that the guy with the chainsaw gets them. So why not? God, it's hard to tell if people are laughing when everybody's on mute. Too bad. That's all right. Thank you, Lee. That's it.
All right, thank you. Adelita.
Thank you. Okay, so for the best speaker, the winner is Justin Frost. And for best table topics, the winner is Tom. And for the best evaluator, the winner is Mark Schroeder, I'm sorry. And for the best big 3 is Mark Sims. Thank you. Back to you.
All right, our meeting is adjourned.
Yay.
Guests are welcome to
Thanks,
stick
everyone.
around.
Guests are
We'll chat
welcome
for
to
a
stick
little bit.
around. I have not stopped the recording yet. I'm just about to do that. So stopping the recording in 3, 2,